You know some Hebrew, you're determined to speak, but when you open your mouth, they answered you in English, and something in you shut down. I'm Inbal, born and raised in Israel. I've been simplifying Hebrew for English speakers for years, and today I want to talk about the walls that stop people from actually speaking Hebrew because they're real and every single one of them has an answer. Let's start with the most common one. I speak to them in Hebrew and they answer in English. First, here's what's probably happening in that moment. Most Hebrew speakers switch to English because they think they're helping you, one, and because we're not the most patient people, two. Typically, we want to get to the point, and we think that by switching to English, we're actually doing you a favor. It's not personal, and it's definitely not a verdict on your Hebrew. Now, if it's someone you know, you can tell them, I'm trying to practice my Hebrew, stay with me. Most will respect that. With strangers, it is harder, but here's what matters. Even if they answer in English, you can keep going in Hebrew. Nothing will happen. One of the most important things to remember, and I really want you to let it sink, that you're not trying to hide the fact that English is your first language. You can't hide it, and you shouldn't try. Sometimes I feel that when people tell me I speak to them in Hebrew and they answer in English, it's like, ooh, they're on to me. I'm an English speaker. It is obvious that you're an English speaker. So what? It's obvious to people on second one that I am not an English speaker and not an American. That is who I am. That is who you are. So here's what I want you to know about this wall. The goal is not that they answer you in Hebrew. The goal is to communicate for the purpose of connection. Again, the goal is to communicate for the purpose of connection. Direct, real-life connection in Hebrew. That experience, that moment of actually doing it is what will get you to the goals that brought you here in the first place. When you really understand Hebrew, you understand the culture in a way that translation will never give you. What Hebrew speakers say to each other in Hebrew is just not the same as what they say in English. The nuances, the references, the feeling in the room, none of that comes through translation. I know this firsthand from living in Portugal, not knowing enough Portuguese. And because of that, communicating in English, which is not their first language. That gap is what Hebrew closes. Communication for the purpose of real connection. Firsthand, unfiltered, that is what you're actually after. That should be your focus when you choose a program. That is why I built Practically Speaking Hebrew with this concept in mind. And that should be your focus when you speak Hebrew in real life. Wall number 2, I'll freeze. I'll open my mouth and poof, all the Hebrew will disappear. The answer to that is go-to sentences. And that is exactly why so much of the work inside Practically Speaking Hebrew is built around go-to sentences. What is go-to sentences? Sentences built around things you will absolutely encounter in real life. Starting a conversation, ending one, ordering anything, introducing yourself. You built all these until they're automatic, until your brain doesn't have to search for them. They're just there. And I want to say something that I think is essential not only for this specific wall, but for your Hebrew journey. You have to make sure you set your expectations right. I get stuck in English. I've been speaking English since I was 4, living and working in English for years, and I go blank. I forget words I know, things I know how to say, and it happens to me more often than I would like. Because hear me out, speaking a second language means being in a room full of courageous people. Literally. Everyone in that room stepped out of their comfort zone and said, I want to understand a different culture. I'm going to speak a different language. Does it matter that you're not perfect in that room? No. What matters is that you're in it. What you really should be asking yourself is, what is it bringing into my life? What doors is this opening for me? Not, am I making mistakes? How many mistakes am I making? Am I perfect? Am I fluent? My favorite. Every single time you practice, you're practicing greatness. And I want you to remember that. Wall number 3, Hebrew speakers talk too fast. Yes, they do. Mentally prepare for it. When you expect it to be fast, you'll be pleasantly surprised every time you catch something, instead of feeling disappointed that you didn't catch everything. That is what I mean by be mentally prepared. And you will have sentences for this too. It's too fast. I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't understand. Can you repeat that? These are not embarrassing. They're tools, but the real answer to this wall is deeper. When you have a strong foundation, when you know the sounds of Hebrew, the patterns, the templates of how the language works, your brain starts piecing things together, even at full speed. You do not need every word because then context will fill the rest. And here's another beautiful thing about how our brain works. It's building connections in the background, whether you notice it or not. And usually we don't. Muscle memory. This progress you won't see. It's in the background. But every time you listen to Hebrew, every time you speak, every time you practice the foundation that you have, it's compounding, which is why a strong foundation is everything. Without it, speed will always stop you. With it, speed becomes something you move through. Wall number 4, I don't have all the words I need to speak in Hebrew. Nobody does. Language is an ocean. It simply cannot be covered. To this day, after working in language in English for decades, living only in English for years, there are words my husband, who is an English speaker, knows that I don't. And don't get me started on how I felt when we were in the process of buying a house and I felt like an entire world of terminology I have never even heard of was thrown at me, from construction to mortgage to home design. It happens to everyone in every language at any level. So give yourself some grace that it will probably happen to you more if you're a beginner, and that every single person who is now great at Hebrew walked the same path you're walking right now and didn't let it stop them. You won't know all the words in Hebrew. That is not the goal, and it was never the goal. The smart way to learn Hebrew is to focus on how to construct sentences so that you can say more while learning relatively less, because then it happens faster and it's compounding. When you know the structure, words are just the piece you add when you need one more. You can look up a word. You can't look up grammar and syntax and pronunciation on the fly mid real conversation. This is why word apps don't work. You end up with a list and no way to use it. Patterns, templates, the structure of the language. That is what makes every new word useful the moment you learn it. That is what I built Practically Speaking Hebrew around. Structure first, words are what you keep adding for the rest of your life. And I give them to you for this exact reason. So you always keep expanding and building on the foundation that you now have mastered. And yes, you can manage in English in Israel with most Hebrew speakers, but you're not here to manage. You're here because Hebrew means something to you, a connection to people, to Israel, to your faith, to a heritage. And that connection, experienced firsthand in the language, unfiltered and without translation, is completely different from anything you've felt before. That is what Practically Speaking Hebrew is built for. And if you're not in yet, the link is in the description. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do if you don't want to miss my next Hebrew lesson and video. And let me know in the comments which of these 4 walls is yours. Watch these next, and I will see you next time. Shalom.